We're gonna change the tempo of the video today. For the past few videos, we've been blitzing through minis using contrast paint, as you can see here and here. Today we're going to slow down and paint Dagnai Holdenstock using the usual painting method.
That the entirety of the cosmos is accessible through each and every individual's mind, connecting to the great mind, the great spirit.
Welcome back to the channel, collectors. I hope you guys have been enjoying our series of Cursed City painting videos. So far we've painted up Brutok, Gorslav the Gravekeeper, the Vikos and the Vaskire. Today we'll add Dagnai Holdenstock to that list. So as you can see, most of this model is clad in shiny brass armor. I'm going to use this opportunity to explain non-metallic metal and how you can achieve this non-metallic metal effect while retaining the red underglow, which I have done for all my Cursed City miniatures. So right now I'm going to be explaining what non-metallic metal is. If you're here just for the tutorial and painting portion, why don't just skip on ahead to the airbrush section. You can check out the chapters that we've cut in the timeline below. So if you're ready for some rambling, let me ramble on about non-metallic metal. NMM is fundamentally using non-metallic colors such as ochres, yellows, whites, greys and blacks to render surfaces and make them as metallic as possible. This is a traditional painting method where old masters paint up armors and swords and weapons all using non-metallic pigments. This was done in the past because metallic pigments didn't exist back then. And because metallic surfaces are inherently glossy, we're going to learn how to distribute the values so that these surfaces look as glossy and render that red underglow effect that we have done so far. The terminology of non-metallic metal, from what I've seen so far, is unique to miniature painting because in miniature painting, metallic paints are also used, and that technique is called true metallic metals. I know that this can be a little bit confusing, so I'm going to demonstrate how I render this effect on the brass and metal surfaces of Dagnai Holdenstock. So for this model, we're going to start off with the usual airbrush method. I know, don't worry, because if you don't have an airbrush, right now I'm currently painting the non-airbrush version so that I can show you guys how to achieve a similar effect without the airbrush. And many of you guys are also very curious of how the back of the model looks like all these comments right here. So don't worry, because I'm going to fix that in some future video. So before we begin this project, we're going to need these colors right here. So why don't you prepare these colors right here, okay? Get them ready and we can begin the airbrushing stage. As per normal, the airbrushing stage follows the usual routine and you can see me doing the airbrushing right now. Alright, so right here I'm going to be spraying Eversun Scarlet. From the bottom left corner, I've started off with a red-black base. The model was primed in black and coated in red ink. Alright. So after this, as per normal, we are going to go with a top spray of black. This will create a color temperature gradient between the warm Eversun Scarlet and the cool white that we will be applying in the later stage. So right now, very selectively, I'm placing in a little bit of white, just leaving a little bit of margin of black before it transits into the black red and Eversun Scarlet. And this will be the base that we work upon. So now that we are done with the airbrushing, we are going to go on to the base coating stage. For the base coating stage, I don't want to waste your time to see me just base coating because base coating is quite basic and normal. And I'm just going to provide you with a list of these colors right here for base coating. So just get them ready and we're going to see the intended effect. So for the base coating part of this video, what you want to do is you want to achieve some shapes, and these shapes are guided by the white highlights that you have achieved using the airbrush stage. You just need to have an internal cut-off point to see where this cuts off, and you should see this as an effect. So this is the model with the base coats. So there's going to be an internal kill switch that you need to think about when painting the base coats. The shapes are really important. So now that the base coating stage is done, we are going to go on to the layering stage. The layering stage, we are establishing the midtones, and you want to make these areas slightly larger so that in the later highlighting stage, you have some bandwidth to create that really awesome high shine highlight. And this is also because these are glossy surfaces, you want the highlights to be just a little bit larger than you expect. At this point of time, don't worry if you painted too much base coat, because we can always correct this in the layering stage by blending it down with black and red paint. So for the layering stage, why don't you get these colors ready, okay? And we can begin layering right now. Okay, so with the layering stage, what we're going to do here is I'm going to be creating the midtones for the brass gold color. Currently what I'm using is Vallejo model color green brown. So at this point of time, remember, you want to make sure that the shapes are correct, and you want to make sure that these areas are large. As I mentioned, if you don't make these areas large, highlighting is going to be really painful in the future, because you want to make sure that you can paint within the lines, and if your lines are really thin, there's no way you can paint within the lines, and that's a fact. Okay, now with this stage done, we're moving on. I'm just adding in a little bit of Vallejo model color pale sand here to start to layer up the brass, and as you can see, the shine is starting to build up. At this point of time, don't be in a hurry to add in pure Vallejo model color pale sand, because if you do that, the jumps will be a little bit too drastic for my own taste. Okay, so right here, what's important is we are going to do the reflected light. Because these are glossy reflective surfaces, what I'm using is Evil Sun Scarlet mixed in with a little bit of chocolate brown, and this will form the underglow and the reflected light on these brass gold surfaces. Okay, you want to have a little bit of this orange looking glow at the bottom, because this really showcases the metallic surface. Okay, right on, we're going to add in a little bit of Vallejo model color blue grey pale into the dark grey that I've used to base coat the silver parts. These parts, as you can see, I'm not really blending at all. I'm just placing in the shapes correctly. As I advise, sometimes between colors you want to do some black lining to sharpen up these edges too. Okay, so now with the black lining done, I'm going to be adding in more Vallejo model color blue grey pale, and I am placing in the highlights without blending. This, as a reminder, is not a blending video. This is to showcase how to create non-metallic metal, and what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna place the highlights where they are most natural to render this metallic color. So moving on, because these are reflective surfaces, once again I'm gonna be adding in Games Workshop Evil Sun Scarlet and placing in these very strong reflected lights. These are the things that make the entire surface look metallic, because they are reflecting off the environmental lights. So just pick on the edges that are downward facing so that you can get this effect. Now that we are done layering, we are going to push the values a lot higher. Because these are glossy surfaces, we're going to make some value jumps, and we're going to make these areas slightly larger to give the effect that these are really shiny, glossy surfaces. This to me is the most gratifying part, because all you need is just the correct placements in the correct areas, and these surfaces will really look like metal and they will really pop. So are you ready for the gratifying part? Get these colors ready, and let's get to the details right now. Alright, here I'm going to be using Vallejo model color pale sand to really make this highlight pop. As you can see, this is a pretty significant amount of area that I'm covering, because I want to make sure that I communicate to the audience that this shine in the gold is very strong and I'm doing this in a streaky pattern sometimes. This creates the brush metal look on some rough metal surfaces to show the texture of the metal surface. Remember, the small little streaks that you create in this scale expands a lot when you take the photograph. Right here, I'm adding in a little bit of white. You can use white from any brand. So I apologize for the blurred footage right here. The camera should come into focus in a little bit. However, what you can see is even when the image is blurred, you can roughly tell the highlights. And this is one of the tricks that I use for painting. So what I do is I squint and I try to look at the form of the miniature. If the form of the miniature looks correct, chances are the effect has really done its work. Okay, so as you can see, it's come into focus, and yeah, not too bad here. So with pure white, I'm adding in the strongest glints on the silver surfaces. As you can see, these placements need to be accurate, and don't think about blending first, because blending can always come later. In my opinion, blending is just the showcase of how much time you have, because blending is inherently a very time-consuming activity. Not taking the credit away from amazing paint blenders, but to me, light placement comes first, then blending. Alright, so now I'm using Vallejo Watercolor Emerald Red, and I'm placing in the strongest reflected highlight. As you can see, the heat from the left hand side is looking so strong on this miniature. And remember, you got to really boost the values for reflected light in these glossy metallic surfaces, because they pick up the ambient light so much more than matte surfaces. So I hope you found this video useful, and thank you for watching all the way to the end, and we will see the result in just a little bit. And we're done with Dagnai Holdenstock, the captain of the sky vessel for Cursed City. So this is the final result. Right here we can see the heat really showing from the left hand side on Dagnai Holdenstock's glossy metallic armor. So this dude is definitely ready to pilot the Adamant and save our survivors for the upcoming campaign. So I hope you found this video useful, and you can follow along and get your own miniature painted up to a really awesome level. Do tag me on Instagram, because I'll be very happy to share my feedback with you guys. Okay, so if you want to support the channel, why not just give us a like and subscribe and grow our channel and keep our lights on, so that I can keep producing videos like this, so that we all get to become better miniature painters together. Support the channel directly, head on to our Patreon and get a whole slew of painting related content that I've been painting for the past year or so. So thank you all for watching all the way to the end. I hope to see you guys in the next Cursed City painting video. See you guys.